The discipline of Egyptology has its origins with the invasion of Egypt by Napoleon Bonaparte in the late 18th century. Napoleon's army would defeat the Ottoman Empire at a time when European colonism was nearing its zenith. The Ottoman Empire, also known as the Turkish Empire, rose to prominence in the 12th century with the help of the Mamluks. The Mamluks, which translates to one who is owned, were an Eastern European population of slave soldiers who overthrew their rulers and came into power. In 1798, Napoleon led the French army into Egypt, swiftly conquering Alexandria and Cairo. The Battle of the Pyramids marked the beginning of the end, 7 centuries of Ottoman and Mamluk rule in Egypt. When Napoleon invaded Egypt, he brought along an army of scholars whose studies during French occupation became the foundation of Egyptology. This field of study was employed to promote the idea of European imperialism. Jean-Léon Gérome's painting, Bonaparte Before the Sphinx, captures Napoleon's instinct that the glory of ancient Egypt could be harnessed to exalt French colonial power. The 5,600-year-old Tajwanat mummy, known as the Black Mummy of the Green Sahara, is the earliest evidence of advanced mummification in the world and was discovered in 1958 by Professor Fabrizio Mori. It predates the earliest Kemetic mummy by nearly 1,000 years and was found in modern-day Libya. This 2.5-year-old boy's organs were removed, as evidenced by incisions in his stomach and thorax, and an organic preservative was inserted to stop his body from decomposing. He was embalmed and wrapped in cowhide. An ostrich eggshell necklace was placed around his neck, and the boy was given a royal burial.
Because of this very sophisticated form of evisceration, what we have is essentially the earliest form of complete mummification yet found in Africa. And it's interesting that everybody always goes to Egypt as the home of mummification, and yet in fact from the dates of the Black Mummy there's certainly nothing like that going on in Egypt at that time.
Anthropological evidence has revealed the populations of the Green Sahara during the early to mid-Holocene era were Black Africans. Due to the extreme climate change and the desertification of the Sahara, these populations were forced to migrate, and with them they transported the science of mummification and the tradition of cattle worship to the Nile Valley. These traditions had deep African roots and would continue in the Nile Valley.
We found the bones and charcoal of cattle, so this was really the very first hard evidence, archaeological evidence of some kind of ritual connected to the cattle cult.
I find it very interesting that these animal-headed human figures exist outside of Egypt at such an incredibly early date, and then later in pharaonic culture you find exactly the same motifs repeated in the very sophisticated Egyptian art form.
The Nile Valley was populated by various tribes and populations from the source of the Nile, the Green Sahara, Napta Playa, and the Horn of Africa. Early pharaonic culture was seated in the south between the regions of Kusto and the city of Nekheb. It was this fusion of early African ingenuity which planted the seed of civilization and birthed the nation of Kemet.
Just here Tripoli, we have here Cairo and the Nile, and just in the center we have the Caucasus Mountains, and we have Algeria, Libya, Egypt, and Sudan, and Chad, and Niger, and Mali.
So this area is bigger than Europe, so it means that all this very, very large extent was inhabited during ancient times by the same ancient African Saharan culture.
I find it quite extraordinary that this Central Saharan civilization shows all the features we generally associate with later Egyptian pharaonic culture, and mummification is a prime example. There are definite links between the two cultures.